Have you ever noticed how quickly a tiny, passing thought can completely ruin your afternoon? Imagine you're sitting at your desk, and you suddenly get a slight tightness in your chest or a subtle flutter in your stomach. It's just a basic physical reaction. Maybe you had a bit too much coffee, or maybe your body is just adjusting to sitting still. But before you even realize what's happening, your brain jumps in with a story. Why is my chest tight? Am I secretly terrified about that presentation tomorrow? Is my partner mad at me? What if my whole life is going in the wrong direction? Within 30 seconds, a simple physical sensation turns into a full-blown existential crisis. In the discourse of modern self-awareness and emotional regulation, few distinction criteria are as fundamental and yet as universally misunderstood as the dichotomy between how we genuinely feel and how we think we feel. Human beings naturally tend to conflate raw emotional experiences with the cognitive narratives constructed around them. This confusion forms the core thesis in The Difference Between How You Feel and How You Think You Feel. By dissecting the biological simplicity of somatic sensations versus the complex narratives created by societal conditioning and ego, we uncover a crucial truth. Much of human suffering stems not from emotional vulnerability itself, but from our cognitive insistence on labeling, extending, and exaggerating simple biological feedback into protracted mental turmoil. If you strip away all your thoughts, judgments, and stories, what is an emotion at its absolute core? At their core, raw emotions are fundamentally simple physical sensations. When reduced to their basic somatic elements, human feelings generally boil down to two primary states of body feedback: tightness, tension, or openness, ease. A raw emotional response is briefly localized: a flutter in the stomach, a slight constriction in the chest, or a release in the shoulders. Left to themselves, these physical sensations are temporary biological cues designed to pass through the nervous system in moments. However, human cognitive processing rarely allows a physical sensation to remain just a sensation. The moment a bodily feedback cue arises, the intellect steps in to analyze, categorize, and assign meaning to it. A mild tightness in the gut becomes overwhelming anxiety about the future, while a momentary tightness in the throat is interpreted as proof of unrequited love or rejection. This leap from physical sensation to intellectual narrative marks the transition from feeling to thinking you feel. If physical feelings pass so quickly, why do adults stay anxious, sad, or angry for days, weeks, or even years? Because genuine somatic sensations are naturally fleeting, they do not possess the inherent capacity to cause long-term emotional entrapment. The feeling of stress or unease, if left alone, dissipates relatively quickly. The reason individuals find themselves stuck in inescapable turmoil, chronic sadness, or prolonged outrage lies in cognitive patterning. When we assign subjective meaning to a physical sensation, we construct a loop. The trigger a subtle body sensation occurs, e.g., tight chest. The thought the mind attaches a dramatic story. Everything is falling apart. The feedback, the mind's narrative, reignites the body's stress response, refreshing the physical sensation. Through this cycle, the ego repeatedly reincites feelings long after the initial event has passed, creating artificial mental emotions that dominate our lives. A massive reason we fall into this trap is that society conditions us from a young age on how we are supposed to react to life. Our mental interpretations of emotion do not arise in a vacuum. They are built upon cultural, religious, and familial programming. From early childhood, we are taught how we should feel about specific outcomes. Success must feel exhilarating. Loss must feel devastating and long-lasting. A life worth living must be deeply dramatic, highly emotional, or intense to be deemed meaningful. This conditioning creates a rigid mental ecosystem of good and bad reactions, driven by desires for survival, social acceptance, and superiority. The ego demands that we hold strong opinions and emotional responses to validate our identity. Consequently, we often force ourselves into exaggerated emotional displays simply to feel heard, relevant, or alignment checked by societal standards. How to break the loop and find peace. Step 1. Scan your body, not your brain. The next time you feel completely overwhelmed by anxiety, sadness, or anger, stop trying to figure it out with your brain. Instead, turn your attention inward and scan your physical body. Is there tightness in my gut? Are my shoulders up near my ears? Is my breathing shallow? Tell yourself, okay, there is a little bit of stress in my body right now. That is all it is. If you stop feeding that physical sensation with dramatic stories, you will notice something incredible within an hour, or by the next day. The feeling will naturally fade away. Step 2. Listen to the little voice. We often assume our true instincts and gut feelings come in massive, crushing waves of emotion. But real intuition doesn't scream at you. Your inner wisdom is almost always quiet, gentle, and calm. Even when your intuition is trying to warn you that something isn't right, it doesn't attack you with panic. It speaks soft truths. If a voice in your head is chaotic, loud, or cruel, that isn't your true self. That is just your ego panicking. Step 3. Stop labeling feelings as good or bad. Human beings don't naturally hate feeling sad or hurt. Think about why we listen to sad music or watch heartbreaking movies. We actually enjoy the depth of experiencing different emotions when we aren't terrified of them. Sadness, pain, excitement, and peace are all just different colors on the canvas of being human. The suffering only starts when we judge our feelings as wrong or bad and try to fight them. To break free from manufactured emotional suffering, one must cultivate the skill of somatic scanning and non-judgmental observation. When faced with intense distress, sitting back and directly observing the body reveals that intuition and genuine emotional cues do not manifest as loud, overwhelming waves. Instead, true inner guidance, often called the little voice within, is soft, quiet, and gentle. Moreover, human beings do not have a natural, inherent aversion to any emotion. Pain, grief, and sadness are neutral states of experience. It is our cognitive judgment labeling these states as bad or unacceptable that generates resistance and suffering. When allowed to simply exist without judgment, even melancholic or difficult emotions can be integrated seamlessly into the broader human experience. Ultimately, our lives are not shaped by our raw, instinctive thoughts or fleeting physical sensations, but by how we use thought to dissect and judge those sensations. Terms like good, bad, right, and wrong do not exist intrinsically within our feelings. They are arbitrary frameworks created by our mental orchestration. By recognizing the critical boundary between direct physical feeling and cognitive interpretation, we untangle ourselves from unnecessary psychological chaos, creating space for authentic peace, presence, and clarity.